Hey, y'all. Welcome to the FlashQuotes podcast, the number one pod for mobile event businesses of all shapes and sizes. I'm here today with Zack Capshaw and Justin Goodhart, my friends and FlashQuotes co-founders. Hey, guys.
How's it going?
I'm good. It's a beautiful day in Colorado. Happy to be alive and happy to be hanging with you guys. Well, what we're going to do today is jump into some Q&A that we had left over from last time. We had some great feedback on that episode, just the discussion being really valuable for folks. So I really appreciate that feedback. And then going to kind of riff on some other things that are on our minds as we're building FlashQuotes and as Justin's working on FlashQuotes and Good Hart Coffee. Before we do that, we just ask if you're enjoying these episodes, please give us a like, a subscribe, comment to us online. I did a call for reviews last time. It was 8 podcast reviews on Apple, 12 on Spotify. Since then, now 14 on Spotify, and Apple is still at 8. So I don't know. Maybe people just love Spotify now, and Apple Pod is dropping.
Maybe we only have 8 listeners on Apple.
It's entirely possible.
All did it 100%. Yeah.
We appreciate it. Cool. Well, with that, let's jump in and rock and roll. One thing we were just talking about, Zach, was incentives and how they play such a critical part in life and especially in business buildings. What you incentivize makes a huge difference, and doing that wrong can really screw things up. So it's something that's worth thinking about very deeply as a business owner. Can you expound upon that a bit?
Yeah, thinking about incentives is huge. There's a well-known quote from Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's business partner. We may have already mentioned it on the pod, but it's a great quote. Basically, he says, "Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome." So the insight there is that incentives drive human behavior, and if to get what you want out of other people, you need to set up the system of incentives for them so that they'll do the thing that you want. But sometimes setting incentives can backfire if you don't design them very carefully and very thoughtfully. And I thought of this because I know Justin has some good examples to share from his journey of figuring out how to incentivize his team and scale that. But I'll start off by sharing just a little anecdote about perverse incentives that I thought was kind of funny. I came across this on the internet recently. So some people will call perverse incentives a Cobra Effect. And I heard someone use that term, like, got to watch out for the Cobra effects in conversation. And I was like, I've never heard that. What does that mean? So I looked it up, and it's actually kind of an interesting story, maybe apocryphal or slightly skewed. But so the story goes that it's the 1800s in India. Britain is kind of expanded their empire to India, and there's a massive cobra infestation in Delhi. So that there's a huge problem, like a public health issue with so many cobras everywhere. And so in order to combat the cobra issue, the British government decided, hey, we'll set an incentive up. Everyone who brings us a dead cobra will pay you a bounty. We'll basically incentivize people to go out, hunt and trap and kill the cobras. That will help us get this under control. So the British government will pay you to bring us dead cobras. Well, sounds fine in practice, but what ended up happening is that people started breeding cobras to collect the bounty. So you have a bunch of underground cobra ranchers breeding cobras like crazy to try and just to kill them and bring them in to make an income off of that from the stipend from the British government. So once it didn't help at all, no one was actually going out and finding and killing the wild cobras. They were just mass producing cobras in their basements, basically, to try and to game the system. And so eventually the British government kind of caught on to this, and they said, you know what, never mind, forget it. The deal's off. We're not going to pay the bounty anymore. And so all the cobra ranchers just let all their cobras go, and the problem became 10 times worse because they multiplied the population artificially and then just let them all go in the street. And basically, you ended up getting the exact opposite of the behavior you wanted by trying to create an incentive to force that behavior. So I thought that was kind of an interesting story, but it ties into business as far as thinking about incentive design. And I think that's especially important with your staff and your employees. So Justin, I wanted to ask you to share some of the lessons you've learned in that realm with Good Hart.
Yeah. I've been thinking about incentives a lot from day one. And if you've been listening to the podcast for any length of time, you probably know that Goodhart has a barista bonus incentive. As of this recording, it's $150 bonus to every barista who completes 5 events to our good performance standard, which includes like arriving to our headquarters on time, arriving to the venue on time, starting service on time. And also the reason I kind of set it at 5 is because I feel like the events industry inherently has an incentive problem with staff, because inherently we don't have regular work to give to staff. And so the structure of the events business is like, it's hard to give your employees or your contractors enough hours to incentivize them to be fully committed to you. That's a huge structural incentive problem in the industry. And so I was trying to combat this and say, okay, I'm going to, like event baristas, some of them can maybe leave a cart dirty because they don't care. They know that like, I'm not going to use this cart next. It's going to be somebody else. I'm not working for 2 weeks. I'm just going to get out of here. And so there can be that sort of like event, like that slippage in standards due to kind of these kind of perverse structural incentives that can really exist in the events industry. So I was trying to combat this with that $150 bonus after every 5 events. And I would say that's like worked really well. Like I wanted to encourage people to think about like, I want to not just work 1 event a month. I want people to like be working hopefully 3 to 5 events a month at least, so that they can get that bonus. And they're really thinking about like, I want to be working that chunk of 5 events. I want to do it to good performance so that I'll get my full bonus. And so that one has worked really, really well. That was probably one of the first incentives and like bonuses that we had at Goodhart. And since then we've expanded those bonuses. Now basically every single role has a bonus and an incentive structure in place.
How did you build the mechanism to track that incentive, and how did you solve the problem of I'll leave the messy card and the broken piece of equipment because no one cares and no one will track it back to me? Like how did you implement the accountability to keep an eye on that and make sure that they're taking care of the next barista who comes after them to be eligible?
Great question. This is something we haven't talked about that much, is event reports, post-event reports that your staff completes. Especially, this is actually one of the core functionalities of expanding to other cities and to know what's going on. And I know of a couple people who are also FlashQuotes users who've implemented this. Eventually, this could be something that we add as a trigger, or potentially add as native functionality to FlashQuotes. It won't be a while, so don't get excited just yet. But an event report, absolutely critical to Good Hart Coffee. I actually am surprised I haven't talked about it more. After every single event, that staff has to fill out an event report. What the client's name was, the event date, the shift start and end time, what cart they used, if there were any issues with the event brief, like their event logistics. Did the site contact not answer? Did they have any issues with parking or whatever? So any event issues, any equipment issues, was the cart clean when you picked it up? And what else? I mean, yeah, if you trained a barista, you kind of fill out, actually, I pay a bonus for people who train new baristas, and so they have to complete like a new barista training report if they were training that event. So yeah, just after every single event, our baristas complete an event report, and that's how we track it too. So they actually self-track. Right now, I eventually want to automate that tracking, but they self-report, okay, this is event number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then all of that event report data goes into a spreadsheet, and I use that then to track equipment issues, track that they're accurately tallying up their events for their bonus, as well as like, any other like parking, loading, event logistics issues we track. So yeah, huge event reports are massive for us. And we drive all of our equipment maintenance and improvement, like iterative improvement for operations, really primarily through the event report, I'd say.
So if an event report comes in and it says, hey, the cart was like filthy when I got it, and something was missing or whatever, just there's some issue, what does that trigger? What do you do with that information?
Triggers a Slack notification to the operations manager. The operations manager will then also, I've trained my staff, like always document. So they will probably send a photo of what was dirty. They'll send it to their operations manager. The operations manager will look up in FlashQuotes who used that cart last. And, either the first time might just be a warning. If there's a pattern of, a specific issue, a repeated specific issue, then at that point, the operations manager would issue a bonus reduction to that barista and would share the photo, would share what cart, what date, what time, because if we're giving people a bonus deduction, we want it to be for very good documented reason. And so then, the operations manager may, if there's a pattern of this low performance from this person or inadequate kind of completion of tasks, we issue the bonus deduction, and then the barista is notified, kind of like a system notification. We don't want it to feel like it's coming like directly from an operations manager. So then kind of like they get the system warning, an email and a notification in Slack. Hey, you got a bonus reduction. Here's exactly the reason and photos and documentation and everything of why it occurred.
Justin, in the case of the Cobra story, kind of, at first glance, that's why these things can be so sneaky. It seems like you're incentivizing the right thing, or at least the outcome you want. Like, we want less Cobras in India. Like, why not? Why don't we pay people to help us, lop off their heads? As horrible as that sounds, for Cobras. But then it didn't end up that way, right? Or there was essentially human creativity paired with greed resulted in this perverse outcome. Have you, as you've thought about or implemented these incentive programs, had any of those situations where it's like, wow, okay, I was incentivizing this thing, but actually the outcome I was getting was not what I wanted, or maybe it was even completely in the opposite direction of what I
Yeah. We haven't had, I would say, any like super extreme examples of that, but definitely there is, the warehouse culture is very important, and like, that the baristas all hopefully know, like, and trust each other. And if they do, which is the goal, you don't want to turn them into tattletales, right? On each other. Like, that's not right. You don't want a barista to be known as a tattletale. And so, like, you don't necessarily want the baristas to be the ones that are reporting the issue in all cases, And so there's definitely a little bit of that, where the stronger the warehouse culture, the less some of that stuff would be reported, even though it was still happening in some cases, because the baristas were kind of like, they know, like, and trust each other. And it's like, maybe they would reach out to that barista directly and say, hey, hey, so-and-so, like, I noticed the cart, like, they might do some of that. But I would say maybe that incentive could be improved, where it probably should be a management person. It should kind of be a bad cop person, or at least in this example, that actually goes around and verifies all the carts third party, as opposed to baristas telling on each other. That is bad for culture. So that is, it's not perfect for sure, but what it definitely does do is, when we don't have that tattletale issue, I'd say, but it means that actually issues can go undetected longer than they otherwise should, and it's probably pretty dang bad by the time one barista is reporting another, because it's probably been going on for maybe months at that point.
Yeah, that's such a good observation about culture and tattletale culture, and how you want to keep that out of your company. At least make the peers and the team members lean on each other and respect each other and trust each other and not want to let each other down. That's a much stronger culture than we're watching each other and who's going to tell on me if I do the wrong thing. Like, some of the companies I've worked at in the past, I would say, had a weak culture, and they would do things like the anonymous suggestion box or the anonymous complaint box or whatever, and someone from HR will look at your anonymous gripe and deal with it, or address it in like an all hands meeting or something. And all that does is foster just just whininess, petulance, people not taking it seriously, people rolling their eyes, people just feeling like this is all a big joke, like this is lame. It never amounted to anything good or useful that came out of it. Even valid concerns, become like, it just makes people fight against each other. That, like, an anonymity thing in a weird way that doesn't make everyone like buy in. The strongest cultures are the ones where people, they're not doing it for their boss, they're not doing it for themselves. They're working hard because they don't want to let their teammates down. They're working hard because they know, and they have a relationship with, Justin's going to use this card after me, and I know he's had a long week, and he's counting on me, and I'm going to do my part so that I don't let him down. Like, that level of camaraderie is ultimately like the fabric of like a really strong team and culture.
That is so well said. And that reminds me actually of one of my closest friends in the world, Zack and Daniel know him. We grew up together. Our moms were pregnant with us at the same time. He was in the Marines. I think for like 6 years, a couple different deployments. And one thing he said to me once about that experience was like, okay, sure, like in this grandiose way, he's fighting for our country, right? At least that's really what he was believing, and that's kind of how it's marketed to join the military. But he said, like, I wasn't fighting for my country. I was fighting for my boys, like the guys I knew right there. I was fighting for them, like, all those immediate close like brothers right there who he had lived with and known for months and years. And so I think, that's obviously an extreme life and death example. But Zach, to your point, that's exactly what a good work culture is like too. Like, I'm doing this for you. Like, I want to, in FlashQuotes, I want the sales call to go well because I want you guys to feel like I'm doing a good job with sales and doing my part and playing my role in the company. And hopefully, like at a barista level and a warehouse level, that could also be true if there's a strong culture.
Yeah. I mean, not only is it good for the business, but that you hear all those stories from folks in the military, going back to that, who come home to normal civilian life and they feel this kind of void of purpose and meaning and camaraderie, because in our day-to-day life, at least in the United States, it's kind of this culture of, I'm going to be the superhero of my journey. I'm going to have to change the world alone, versus I'm leaning on other people. I'm working towards a common goal. And that's a really awesome thing if you can instill that in your team. I know for incentives too, Justin, just going back to trying to think about, okay, I don't want people tattletaling on each other. You've implemented pretty good follow-up with the actual client after the event to get feedback from them, right? Because they have no reason to lie about what happened, right? Whether it was good or bad. In fact, maybe some folks may be inclined to have a negative spin on it. I'm not sure, but I think that's been a helpful way to kind of triangulate and suss out, what happened at that event, given how critical they are, right? A single person could be representing Good Hart Coffee or any of these caterers, right, in and of themselves. So I think that's really good.
Yeah, that's I think I've mentioned this before. That's kind of the red flag mechanism. What's called a red flag mechanism. I think that I first learned that concept in the book Good to Great by Jim Rohn, is it? I forget.
Collins, maybe?
Jim Collins, that's right. Yeah, red flag mechanism. Speaking of incentives, like, you need these benchmarks to get real, honest feedback about, right? So I kind of have these red flag mechanisms that I get from my baristas, if there's equipment red flags or, staffing red flags, but I also get them from clients. Like, we ask every client, hey, how was service? How was Chris's service? How was Jubilee's service? Whatever, was the drinks and service great? We ask that after every event, and a lot of people say nothing. And so, they're probably busy and it's fine. A huge percentage of people, well, yeah, actually, it's the bulk of people say nothing, and then probably 20% or more give us, a great rave response back, and then there's a small percentage where it's like, wait, actually, like, the barista was late, and then they and they weren't very nice, and they were on there. This has so rarely happened, but I've heard it. Like, the barista was sitting down the entire time and had earpods in and wasn't very friendly, and well, that of course was disappointing for me to hear, but invaluable information to make sure that, well, that barista needs a performance improvement plan or needs to go.
It reminds me of a story. I may have told this story on the pod once already, but it's just makes me laugh. So my wife goes to like an esthetician and she'll get, facials and different treatments done and stuff. She went one time. She was really excited. It was just postpartum. Like, she just had her baby and it was her first like treat herself day. And I think she had like a gift card or something, but she went there and got this like facial done. And it was horrible. Apparently, it was like a new girl who did a really bad job. Like, just the experience was bad. She wasn't happy with her service at all. But you guys know Kat. She's very sweet. She's not one to like make a fuss or complain or be a Karen in that situation and ask for the manager. She just kind of like left, like, shocked almost at how bad it was. And the owner, who she knows and has a relationship with, like, saw her on the way out and was like, "Hey, Kat, how'd it go?" And she was like, "Oh, fine," and like ran away. And the owner like called her up when she got home. She was like in the middle of telling me like, "Oh my gosh, it was so terrible. Like, that girl, what was she doing? Does she know what she's doing?" And then the owner like called her up. She's like, "Should I answer?" I was like, "Yeah." And the owner was like, "Tell me the truth. Like, what happened? What's your experience like? You were not acting like yourself." And she was like, she finally like confessed, like, this was really bad service. I'm really displeased with what I got, and I did not get my money's worth. And the owner was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for being honest with me. It's like so hard to get like honest feedback about what's happening, like sort of behind closed doors with new people when you're training and stuff. You just don't know. So like, thank you so much." And I just told her like, "You gave that person a great gift. Like that, it's hard for owners to get to know that stuff, and there's nothing bad about like complaining about a legitimate bad service or bad experience. It helps make their business better, and they can take that information from there and do whatever they need to do."
Yeah, and doing that privately before things would escalate to a public forum like a bad Google review is critical. And
Yeah.
that's how, like, asking for that stuff so that you can catch it privately and that person feels addressed and like taken care of is massive. And this has always been my greatest fear of growing and scaling, is that I will lose touch. I will have no idea what's going on, and I'll wake up one day and I'll have a crappy company and it's slowly snuck up on me, and I'll have no clue why or how we got here. And so I knew along the way that I had to build these red flag mechanisms at all levels of my company so that I could keep my finger on the pulse as I grow. It's really easy to keep your finger on the pulse if you're at 80 or 50, even 50 to 100% of events. It's so easy to know what's going on. But when you start growing and you stop going to events, you have to start getting this feedback, or you're going to wake up one day with, a crappy culture, a crappy company, and you won't know why. So yeah, super critical.
Justin, one thing, it's not really something we plan to talk about, but one thing I've noticed and appreciated about you, obviously working on FlashQuotes together, gotten really close to see you as an operator and the owner of Good Hart Coffee, is the extent to which you operate with a high degree of transparency in your business. I mean, just even talking to your team, this is the bonus amount, these are the expectations, this is how many events we're doing, this is how we're growing, right? Sometimes I think business owners might feel apprehensive or like they need to keep information tight. I think you've, whether it's been conscious or unconscious, have kind of operated in this mode of like very, very transparent and open with what's going on. And I think that's really admirable and cool. I mean, do you notice that? Are you aware of that? And is that something you were conscious about doing, or is that just kind of an outgrowth of your own way of being and, wanting to have minimal BS?
I don't know. I mean, I've never thought, I don't self-identify as like being a super transparent business owner or anything. I think part of it was like like some of the incentives that I have for various roles, like require access to certain information. Like my event planners need to know all the sales numbers. That's how they calculate their commission. My operations people need to know the number of events they're doing. We just recently added that one as well, where the operations was one of the last people to get an incentive structure, like a bonus structure, and we just added it, and so they get like a certain bonus for each event that they kind of successfully staff and execute. And no, I don't know. I don't really self-identify as particularly transparent, but I have always felt like, definitely back to childhood, I hated being told what to do if I didn't know the reason behind it. And so that's definitely been a driving energy of everything I do, is like just this visceral anger as a child of like, someone's telling me what to do, obviously like parents first. If someone's telling me what to do and I don't understand it and they won't tell me the reason behind it and I want to know that, like, just I am not happy. And then I kind of just told myself, like, I'm never going to do that. I'm going to always make sure that I will always, whenever reasonable and desirable, I will always share the reason and the motivation behind what we're doing it. Probably sometimes to a fault. Probably sometimes my team is probably like, okay, we don't care. Just tell us what to do. But I guess that's probably the ethos that has maybe driven that, accidental transparency. I'm not sure.
I think there's two. It's a good observation, Daniel, and I'm glad you asked that. I think there's two maybe knock-on benefits that I've seen both in your company and other ones I've worked at that were super transparent at the leadership level. One benefit of being transparent is that it's easier to build that camaraderie that we're talking about, because instead of like, if you're not transparent, it creates this dynamic where people feel like, well, I guess I just have to do my job and put my head down and not worry about like what Good Hart Coffee is trying to become as a business. But if you are, then everyone can kind of buy into like, we're part of this team. We're trying to grow. We're launching a new city. Our goal is to break our new record for the most bookings in a month or the most events in a month. We're all like pitching in. We all have a little piece to play in that kind of grander vision, and that could be good for culture and team building and making people feel like they're they're working towards something together as opposed to just like cogs in the machine. But two, and this is almost a segue to the data conversation and the metrics conversation. Like you're saying, Justin, you're incentivizing people based on business metrics and outcomes, not based on like individual tasks. And I think that's kind of a piece of wisdom that maybe goes unspoken or isn't intuitive to some people. Like the right way some people micromanage their salespeople and might say, I'm going to track like the number of cold calls that you make and the number of how long you're on the phone every day. And, those are your metrics. Like how many contacts are you making? How many phone calls are you making? Are you smiling and dialing? Like, are you getting out there? That's not a real business outcome. That could be like a Cobra Effect in a way. Like people can game that. They can, doesn't necessarily move the needle. What moves the needle is sales and bookings. So you just need to be clear to them. Like these are the metrics that drive our business. This is how they're supposed to grow. You can see them. I'm not just going to tell you what to do. I'm going to explain what I want to happen in the business and let you surprise me with your creativity and ingenuity and ownership of this metric or this number. That's like a really empowering way to get the best out of people and to let them feel ownership and autonomy in their role. If you give them an outcome and let them figure out how to achieve it.
Yeah. 100%. And I, we have weekly, I do weekly one-on-ones with every single person on my leadership team, but we also have weekly, like almost department meetings, right? Weekly operations, weekly sales. And we cover that stuff. Like, okay, how many events are you, on operations? How many events do your cities have this week on the sales side? What's your revenue? What's your booking percentage? I actually built. And actually on the transparency front, I think it's almost more systemic transparency than personal transparency. And because I will share it openly if I'm having a conversation with you, but a lot of times I'm busy or back-to-back calls or doing whatever. And so I may not have the time to like personally fill you in. And there's definitely been periods in Good Hart Coffee where people are like, I don't know what's going on. I barely just get the information I need, like just in time for me to like use it. And I don't actually know anything else other than that. And there's definitely been that phase at Goodhart. And I think now to like address that stuff, I feel like I just built some almost structural transparency. So every single day, 4 p.m., the report of daily leads by city comes in. How many leads did we get in every city? How many bookings in every city? What's the revenue in every city? Every Friday, a full weekly report of weekly leads, weekly bookings. I want to do a monthly one, but they're kind of annoying to build, so I haven't taken the time to build that monthly report. But yeah, so some of it is just like structural. I can't remember to do it, but I definitely can build automations to always get people the right information at the right time.
So the number one question we get is, what software do I need besides FlashQuotes to help me grow my business? So we decided to put together a cheat sheet. It covers everything from scheduling tools, communication tools, payroll, basically every category of software you need to run a growing event business on top of FlashQuotes. You'll save a ton of time, energy, and money trying to experiment with other tools if you just take our word for it. We've tested them all, and we have a great list for you. So it's free. You can just scan this QR code or go to flashquotes.com/software tools and download that free cheat sheet. All right, back to the pod.
Yeah, I mean, I think, thanks for answering that, man. It kind of made me think like the transparency that I've maybe observed has been, like you said, structural. And it's being structurally transparent and shining a light on the most important metrics for your business so that people can see the through line, right? To connect what they're doing to that. And I remember a story, there was somebody who was going to SpaceX and doing an interview of Elon Musk and what they're doing and what they're achieving there. And, they were walking around and they saw somebody, it was a janitor who was mopping the floors and doing work within one of their buildings. And they said, what is it that you do here? And you'd expect them to explain what they do from a janitorial perspective. But instead they said, I mop the floors and keep this place clean so that everybody who comes in each day has an amazing place in which to work, so that they can help craft the parts that are going to go into the rockets, so that we can build a rocket that can come back down and land with reusable boosters, so that we can become an interplanetary species. And
Janitor said this. That's great.
yeah. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like Elon, whether you love him or hate him, he has this incredible ability. And most of the business owners who have really impacted the world have this incredible ability to connect whatever you're doing, even if it is cleaning toilets, to the master vision of what they're trying to achieve. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
an
incredible.
amazing story. Yeah. I mean, that's like the perfect example of a broad, inspiring mission statement that gets people fired up and make them want to come work for you, and communicating how everyone is part of making that vision happen. It's not it's not just the rocket scientists or whatever. Like we're all part of this team. I had a more mundane example, but I think it may still be helpful for Justin and people listening, which is there was a SaaS company that I used to work for that I think had extraordinary culture, and one just like random anecdote I just remembered that I really liked, especially when I was onboarding, is that in the there's like a employee portal kind of thing where you could log in, and that's where you would do like, fill out, there was like payroll and HR stuff and whatever, and there was some like internal comms and documentation and all this stuff. But it was a place that you needed to log into periodically for your job. And it was a surface that you would see a lot. And the first, like above the fold, the big thing when you log into the employee portal was like, the climb, and it was like a picture of a mountain, and it just showed like, here's where we are, revenue, churn, ARR wise, here's where we're going to be when we IPO, here's where we started, and here's where what we need to do this month. And it was just like a little nice chart that just showed you like where we're at on the journey of starting this company to IPOing someday, how far we are, and what do we need to do today, this month, to like hit our growth goal, hit our churn goal, and make sure that we stay on the climb, on the right track. And like basically, and everyone in the company, every role, whether it's support, success, product, sales, et cetera, they all know like what part they have to play in getting that number to hit its to the right point every month. And they all really strive to do that. I think that's an incredible way to just, in a very crisp way, like you're saying, Justin, because the founders knew that in their head, and they every once in a while, in all hands, they would say it, and they would remind us like, yeah, we're at this revenue, we need to get to this revenue by the end of the year, this by 3 years, blah, blah, blah. They could repeat it till they're blue in the face, but just literally weaving it into a digital surface that every one of us looked at almost every day was like a really powerful way of just reminding everyone, like, this is what we're doing. And it's a good way of prioritizing too. Like if you're trying to figure out like what people should focus on, or if they have conflicting priorities, just ask them to ask themselves, like, how is this helping move that number forward? Right. And that can be very clarifying for people.
That's awesome. And everybody knew that number, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You
like
memorize it. Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. So one thing we wanted to hit on that's kind of related to incentives is data and being data driven. It can be somewhat of a meme that doesn't have a lot of meaning or meat on the bones. You have to be thoughtful, obviously, going back to the Cobra story and incentives, on what data you measure, and what gets measured gets managed, as we all know that aphorism. Zack, you had some thoughts on data. You've been digging into a lot of data for FlashQuotes, and as we think about marketing and our sales and our strategy being really data driven, and I know you had some insights as you were digging into that.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of related to that dashboard thing I was just sharing, right? I think Justin, what was that quote from Jack Dorsey about, like, I just wish we had the right dashboards or something?
Yeah, there was like this journalist interviewing Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, and like they were kind of just asking him, like, what mistakes did you make at Twitter early on? And it was kind of a lighthearted question, and he's like dead serious. He's like, I just don't feel like we had the right internal dashboards to like guide us, which actually, now that I'm saying it, like that's another way of saying like he didn't have the right red flag mechanisms, like just the dashboards is a way of saying like alert systems to spot red flags before they blow something up. And so, yeah, in this interview, he was just like, yeah, we didn't have enough internal dashboards. So I didn't know what was going on, and we kind of got off course. So,
yeah. So I think that's the default mode for all business owners when they first start, whether you're a software founder like us or a event business owner, you're just kind of flying blind because you're there's so much going on and everyone's busy and you're hiring and you're doing events and you're executing day to day and you're dealing with, upset customers or people, upset employees or putting out whatever fire there is. And all of a sudden you can wake up a couple of years later and realize like, I have no idea like really what's going on in my like, I don't know the numbers of my business very well. I don't know what, are we on track for growth or not? How much are we growing? Are we, are we bringing back repeat customers or not really? Like, there's a lot of things you would want to know. Same with a SaaS company, right? How much are we growing? What's our churn rate? Are people sticking around? How long are they sticking around? Things like that are really critical, but it can just become a back burner thing that you don't think about in the day-to-day grind of just, selling and shipping and coding and just trying to make stuff happen and get this airplane off the ground. But we've been kind of digging into that lately as founders and thinking more about, what to measure and how can we be a little bit more data driven? How can we expose problems that may be lurking under the surface, either with the product or with customer experience or support or whatever, just because we didn't, like Jack Dorsey said, we just didn't have any visibility into it. We weren't tracking it. We didn't have the analytics set up. So I suspect that it's kind of a scary or overwhelming proposition to think about, like, how do we become data driven or how do we start measuring stuff or what should we measure? So I've been really doing some research and asking AI and thinking about like, how do we simplify it and just pick like a few key metrics? If there was only 3 or 4 things that we just looked at every day and knew that if those things were in the green, we're good to go, what are those things and how can we calculate them correctly and automate them so that I see them every day? Kind of like what you're saying, Justin, with automated reports of how many leads did we get? How many events did we book? Things like that, just so that it's constantly visible and in your face and you're keeping on top of it, like what gets measured gets managed. So I've been thinking about that and doing some research there on if we're just going to measure one metric for like marketing, what would it be? If we're just going to measure one metric for the effectiveness of our sales process, what would it be? And if we're measuring one metric for customer health and happiness, like how would we figure that out? And how can we then automate it and put it in front of our whole team every day so we're staying on top of it? But I wondered if you have any ideas on what those are for service businesses, Justin. I know one of the benefits of FlashQuotes is that we've kind of encoded some of them in there for people, right? Like the booking rate is really important. And we've surfaced that very prominently on the homepage because we want you to be paying attention to that. But what other ones do you think are really valuable to track and do you keep an eye on?
I mean, big picture business owners is just number of leads, your booking percentage, and your revenue. And those all are interconnected. For me, I've talked to hundreds of business owners in the last year of primarily coffee catering, but of all different industries. I feel like we've started to see patterns and hear patterns. Off the top of my head, like businesses that are only getting that get like, I don't know, 20 to 40 leads a month, and have, let's say, a 20% booking rate, they might only be at like 10K a month. We start to see people get into that like 20, 30, 40K of revenue per month. You probably got to be 80 to 120 leads per month with a strong 15 to 25% booking rate to get into kind of that multi 5-figure, like tens of thousands of dollars in revenue every month. And so that's the first place to start. And we even internally, we talk about this is like, what issue if someone is not really thriving on FlashQuotes, what's the issue? Do they have low leads or do they have sufficient leads and just a low booking rate? Those are some of the 2 key metrics that we use. And so, yeah, service business owner, do you have enough leads? And what percentage of those leads are you closing? That will equal your revenue. And that's like the key, that's the North Star of Good Hart Coffee. Leads, booking percentage, revenue. That's really all I think about. Everything else is almost secondary to those.
I think the reason, if I'm understanding, I think the reason you say that is because leads is basically a proxy for like, how well is my whole marketing engine working? Are people finding me? Are they, how are my Google ads working? How's my organic search? How's my website conversion rate? Like all that. The output of all that is good or increasing lead volume. And then same for the sales process. Like booking rate is just a proxy for how good you are at closing the leads that you get. So if it's low, it means that something bad is going on in your sales organization, and you got to figure out what it is and improve it.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you seen any meaningful upticks in revenue as a function of changing your offering or pricing? You could think about average order value and kind of the basket of goods that somebody purchases and increasing the wallet share from your existing customers or your existing lead volume. Like, hey, my leads are here, my booking rate is here. I can certainly try and increase those, and those probably should be my top two goals. But in between, there's a question of like, what are they buying, and what is the suite of offerings that are available to them, and how are they priced? Have you ever seen like a step change? Like, oh, we added latte printing, or when we first added, custom cups or custom carts, those were big changes in revenue.
Oh, man, I'm not the kind of packaging expert guy. Like I'm a high volume, like I offer one service and I offer these customizations and I crank on those. Like I probably could benefit a lot in my business from developing in that area. But the people that really stand out to me in that regard are probably more the maybe Creature Coffee, Corbin from Night Owl, maybe Nikki from Anacho, Cynthia from Always Kind. Honestly, I think all of those people are probably better at like presenting packages and stuff like that than I am. I have my strength. I don't know that that's one of my top strengths, to be honest.
So you felt personally like, hey, I can just crank leads. Like, let me just get the marketing angle really cranked up.
Yeah, I really I am a productized service. Like I'm not the bespoke sort of boutique and agency that's gonna like just ask, just not seeing something you want, just DM, like just reach out and we'll make it happen. No, we're a productized service. Do you want this? Get an instant quote and book it. Now we do listen to customer signal, and if we lose a lead and say, hey, we're going another direction, all my event planners know to dig into that. Are you not doing a coffee cart? Are you hiring another coffee cart? Why did you go with them instead of us? And we're always asking that because maybe I do need to expand my productized service, but I am a productized service, and that is a large part of why I've been able to scale so quickly, because we can refine those offerings and kind of have the assembly line. But once the assembly line's built, like we're not changing that much, and so we have to be very thoughtful about what we add.
Yes.
I think there's something interesting there just about like how like the owner's fingerprints and DNA are all over their business, right? And there's more that we share a lot of like best practices and things that we've seen, but there's more than one way to succeed in this game. Justin's business is, from my perspective as an outsider, it's got his fingerprints all over it, right? It's optimized. It's about good systems, staying organized, automation, repeatability, scalability, and being really great at Google marketing, and that, just pumping leads through a funnel, getting them done, and fulfilling an order at the end. And that's the stuff that you're interested in. That's the stuff that you're good at, and those are the superpowers that you brought to the business. And so it reflects. It's kind of made in your image in that way. But other people are different. Other people, they're more interested in creating that bespoke experience for their clients, or offering lots of different types of things and being being more of like a hospitality type of experience that they bring to people, and that's like their favorite thing, and everything else feels like kind of work to them, and so they have to either hire or manage around their weaknesses. I think that's great. I think that's part of why, just like there can be many different software systems that compete with each other because they all have like a slightly different edge or benefit or something. The same is true for the event business, it seems like.
That is true, and that is, accurate and a good observation. I do just want to say, though, that do not get it mistaken that we don't care about customer relationships and personal interaction, because that's all my event planners do all day every day is call up these people, build a relationship, build rapport with them. And there's a reason I think Good Hart Coffee is currently the most reviewed coffee company on the planet. I think between all of our locations and all our reviews, we probably have over 2,000, if not more. I don't know exactly where we are up to date on that. So yes, I'm a productized service. No, it doesn't mean that like if you do inquire that like we're just crazy robotic and in the way we interact with actual customers, but on the back end, how we deliver, definitely like everything you said, automated, productized, and so on.
Yeah, I'll clarify what I said, but which is that like amazing customer service is not negotiable. That's not one of the things that you can like have or not have. But I was just thinking like there's some events businesses that almost really lean into like almost like the wedding planner energy, where it's like, let me make your dreams come true. Let me pour your vision into me and we will bring it to life. And that, that some people really want that. It's definitely not as scalable. It's definitely the type of business where you need to have higher ticket clients and fewer of them. But that's just another type of persona I've seen in this space that's a little bit different.
Yeah, and you can do really well. Like there are coffee caterers who do that. They're like almost a experiential agency by way of coffee, and their average order values are phenomenal, like way, way, way higher than probably Goodhart will ever have, and it's really impressive. And like I respect those people a ton. It's just not my personality or strength, but it honestly might be the better lifestyle choice. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, whether you want somebody to pour their vision into you and be a bespoke service maker, or you want to slay with volume, regardless of how you operate as an event business owner, the tool you need is FlashQuotes. This is brought to you in full by FlashQuotes. If you want to hang out with us, if you want to sign up and change your business and grow like crazy, if you want to compete with Justin's 2,000 reviews, do not let him be king for long. Sign up for FlashQuotes. Hit us up at hello@flashquotes.com, book a demo, sign up, whatever you want to do. Join the fun.
Yeah, and we're really going to give you a great onboarding experience. We're going to guide you through, make sure that you're taken care of. This is really, we want to answer all your questions. We want to have that, bring that high level of service and support to you, because it is a big decision to switch systems in your business, especially if you're already established. So, do always like to say that. Also, thanks again for sticking around, listening this far. Again, if you've been enjoying these episodes, please like email us, comment, text me, whatever, and let us know. Let us know what stood out. Let us know what you'd like to hear more of. Let us know if you have other questions, and definitely rate and review us on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen. We'd be super grateful for it.
Sure, we'll do another listener mailbag soon. So send us some questions. We've got a few left over and we could always use more.
Yeah, Daniel is going to ask how we get big annual contracts with repeat clients. So you're going to have to listen to future episodes to find the answer. But let us know if you want to hear the answer.
See y'all.
See ya.
Cheers.